Okay. Welcome to our first episode of I don't know what the fuck we're calling it yet.
The Oracle of BLINDWOLF?
The Oracle of BLINDWOLF and Jackaria. Okay, anyway, I'm Gasper. This is Jack. We're going to be playing through Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons together but separately. So I will be playing Oracle of Ages. Jack will be playing through Oracle of Seasons.
Which is my favorite game.
Which is great. Your favorite game?
I have this problem where I say games that I really like are my favorite game. Like, a month and a half ago, Link's Awakening was my favorite Zelda game.
So there you go.
Different generations of gaming. Like,
right.
For the time that Oracle of Ages came out, which I would say is like Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask and maybe even Twilight Princess, like that range of Zelda, like it is my favorite Zelda game.
Sure.
Because I played it so many times.
Okay, there you go. Okay, well, good. That's great. We're gonna do a little introduction to Jack. So how long have you been playing video games?
Since I was at least 3 years old.
I know, right? Like, how do you even... I don't even remember.
I remember very distinctly my babysitter came over and her boyfriend had to stop and drop off something. And we were playing Mario and he, like, showed me how to, like, run and slide in the second level under those bricks to get to the other side. And I was like, oh my god, video games. They're amazing. And I don't think I've stopped ever.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, cool. Yeah, I feel like it's been the same for me. I can't even remember, like, exactly when it was. But yeah, it feels like it's been a really long time, definitely since I was a kid. And it's funny because I see my cousins now and they're like little kids and they're definitely playing video games younger than I am. And I'm like, holy, this is weird. Like, anyway, first ever video game, was it Mario, you're saying?
Either Mario... Or it's either Mario Duck Hunt or Adventures of Lolo and Lala 3,
Duck Hunt,
which is a puzzle game.
Yeah, what is that?
It's a really, really hard puzzle game that I never got past the first like level, like the tower. It's for the Nintendo and
like original.
My sisters used to play it a lot, so I would try and like be as good as them, and I just wasn't because I was like 3 or 4 and not smart enough to tackle a puzzle game.
Yeah, I never had a Nintendo Entertainment System. I think my first console was a Game Boy, and I think my first game was probably like Super Mario Brothers 2 or something. I think that was it.
Super Mario Land 2?
Super Mario Land 2, yes.
One of my favorite games.
That's your favorite game. Okay, so then next question is, what is your favorite game?
Oh, God.
No.
So many. I want to say Breath of the Wild, honestly, because it was such a good experience.
Nice.
Games become my favorite games because of the experience I feel when I play them.
Sure.
Like, if a game has a really good adventure that I, like, lose myself in the world, like Pokemon Blue is my favorite quote-unquote game.
Right.
Rainbow Islands on the NES, lots of...
There's a lot.
I don't really have a favorite.
Yeah, that's actually not... It wasn't even a question, but it's... I just wanted to put you on the spot.
Well, what is your favorite game?
Ocarina of Time.
Okay,
I can pretty fully confidently say that. It's pretty hard to beat. What was your first Zelda game you ever played?
Zelda 1.
Zelda 1, the original Legend of Zelda.
I have a gold card on my wall. I put it up in that like mural of NES games I have. Is Zelda 1.
What?
Yeah, we had it for the NES. My cousin gave us his Nintendo and all of his games, and he had that one, and I don't think I beat it until last year, like for the first time.
Yeah, I tried to play it a couple months ago.
It's hard.
It's ridiculous.
Especially if you don't know what things do, which is, again, why I think Breath of the Wild might be my new favorite game, because, it's very modern, so you know what you're doing, but, like, nobody tells you what's going on. And that's why Zelda 1's so great, is, like, nobody tells you anything. Like, you burn a tree. Why would you ever light a tree on fire with a candle? Right. You wouldn't.
I don't understand really what that game was formatted for. Like, the exploration is so crazy. Like, you need to just go and figure your shit out. Like
100% revolutionized the idea of what a video game could be in terms of like an adventure game.
Sure. I feel like it's different back then because people were playing these games together a lot more often, and people were like, oh, well, did you do this yet? Did you hear about this? And it's like, I don't know. It feels like more of a community thing, social.
There was something that happened when the internet started becoming really popular for gaming is that you could just go look up whatever you wanted.
Right.
You didn't have to talk to your friends who had played the game or, like, you know, get a magazine or buy the strategy guide. Side note, there was a Mario Kart 8 strategy guide, and I'm like, as cool as this is for probably the art, there's no reason for a Mario Kart strategy guide.
Yeah, that makes a little sense.
But, exactly, like, you know, I didn't even know about the candles burning things until I watched someone play it online. So, it's just, I talked about this. Games used to be, like, things that you would sit down and play for, like, an hour or two.
Right.
And then you would, like, get up and go and do the rest of your day, and then you come back and sit down for maybe an hour or two. And a lot of them were just, like, you start from level 1 and you go all the way through. But Zelda was, like, not the first, but it was one of the first major games where you would, like, pick up where you left off based on how much progress you made.
I was wondering, is that the first? Because I was wondering if that's a first... I remember it being one of the first ones that had, like, a save. Like, you could actually save your progress and
I think it was one of the first. I'm not sure if it was the first, but it was definitely revolutionary that there was a battery inside of a cartridge that would really keep track of what you did.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I feel like, you know, you're right in that Breath of the Wild, now you see it kind of going back to that, like, exploration-based. I feel like now it's a little bit more linear and more tolerable with with the graphics and what you're actually doing.
I would say, I mean, they handle it really well in terms of the main story elements you can go do in whichever order you want.
Oh, really?
Which is awesome. Like, you don't have, there's no, like, level 1, level 2. There are things that you are aware of, and I just found out after beating the game, you don't even have to do those.
Okay.
You can just go to the end after you do the initial tutorial thing. And I mean, like, if you break the game, like, for speedruns, you can definitely get there really faster. But, like, if you want, you can just stroll up and go to the end game fight. It's gonna be really, really hard.
Sure.
But you can do that if you want. Like, no, my whole thing was like, Link tried to fight the enemy first, and it didn't go so well. So, like, I'm gonna wait till I am 100% ready.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I can't wait to play it. It's gonna be.
I'm
awesome.
so excited for you to play it.
So the next question was going to be what your favorite Zelda game is, but I think you just already addressed it with Breath of the Wild. Am I wrong?
It is now my favorite Zelda game, but kind of tied for the second favorites are Link's Awakening and Oracle of Seasons.
It's so hard for me to even kind of, like, fathom that, and that I keep hearing that. And it's something I also was reading is it seems like a trend in that a new Zelda game will come out. People will say, this is better than Ocarina of Time. And then in a couple years, it'll get a bunch of heat, and then people won't care anymore. And then years later, it'll be celebrated again. And I'm wondering if that's going to be the case with Breath of the Wild.
I'm hoping not, just because I would like to see that trend broken, because it's unfortunate, because Skyward Sword wasn't terrible, but everyone, like, shit on it.
Yeah.
And it was so... Because I played it, and, like, it wasn't a game for me, because to me it was just Twilight Princess again, which... I love Twilight Princess, but for me, it's just Ocarina of Time again.
Sure.
And
So it's different, though.
It broke that mold. It's different. They broke the mold. There's definitely... I loved the exploration. So I think that since a new whole generation of people are going to be playing it, it's going to be like Wind Waker, where people are like, this is the best Zelda game of all time. Because it was their first. And I think a lot of the thing about is if your first Zelda game is usually your favorite. Now, I'm a little different because I played Zelda 1 and 2, and I didn't really think of those as, like, my favorite game. Link's Awakening was, like, the third one, and I played that everywhere in car rides, on long trips. So, like...
It's special to you.
It's special.
Right.
And then Oracle of Seasons was kind of the same thing. It was still when I couldn't drive my own car. So, like, I would play it in between doing chores with my mom and going to and from school. So
sure.
That's why it holds a special place in my heart.
So now we're going to talk about the Oracle games, Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons, the games that we are addressing primarily in this podcast. So both games were released for the Game Boy Color in 2001. They were made by Capcom, switching it up. So a little bit of Mega Man love. We'll get a Mega Man Link. Does he get a Buster?
I wish I could tell you that he does, and even if it was the shittiest weapon in the game, I would 100% only use it.
You know what? After fucking Link's Awakening and seeing Kirby and Pokies and Cheep Cheeps and everything, you might as well. I forgot
about that Kirby's in that game.
You should have just seen Mega Man in this game, but whatever. So this is the third installment of this version of Link, essentially. So we saw Link in A Link to the Past, and then we saw him again in Link's Awakening, and now this is in the Oracle games. This is the third Link we see. That's pretty unique, as we almost always see a different version of Link. So this Link has been through some shit.
Already. He's saved Hyrule.
He saved Hyrule, got the Triforce.
And then he was in a storm, and this windfish that was in trouble was like, hey, I'm going to pull you into we're going to have a collective dream right now, because I need you to help me.
Right. And then he has that whole adventure, collects a bunch of stuff, and then wakes up from that dream. So basically he starts at square one again, if that's correct, laying the Master Sword to rest. So he has basically nothing. So these games, Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons, function separately, or they exist separately, but they function together to form a single linear plot, apparently.
Right, and Seasons takes place before Ages.
So chronologically, Seasons would have happened before Ages, which is why we're going to introduce a lot of your stuff first throughout this. But I think that's really interesting in that these games were, a great marketing ploy by Capcom and Nintendo to make two separate cartridges. You have to get both of these games to experience the entire linear plot.
It's a little bit of that Pokemon juju that they had.
Sure. But even Pokemon, I mean, like, whatever, you play through Red, you play through Blue, it's basically the same game. Instead, in Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons, you have two completely different games where you have different abilities in either game. One in Oracle of Seasons to change the seasons, to change the weather, and Oracle of Ages to travel through time. And not only that, it's not that you just have those separate abilities, but it's also that you have 9 different dungeons in each game. So you have a total of 18 separate dungeons, which I thought was really interesting. I actually went to Zelda Dungeon to confirm this. I was like, oh, but we're playing through the same dungeons, right? No. Nope. Completely different. And then I was actually looking through the Oracle of Seasons dungeons, and I was like, oh, these are really cool. Unicorn's Cave, Dancing Dragon Dungeon, Poison Moth's Lair.
I'm 100% that, like, if we finish these games and you still feel like you want to play them, we should do the linked playthrough. Sure. Because there is, like I said, an additional end game if you do that, which is pretty cool.
Let's mention that, the linked playthrough. So after you finish, like if I were to finish Oracle of Ages, at the end I get a code, right? Is that what
you
happens?
Get a password, and then you take it to a special place, or you put in the linked game password, and then
to the other game, right?
From the other game, like say I was playing Seasons and going on Ages, I would take that password, start a linked game, put that password in, and then it would give me. It starts you out with 4 hearts. I think you automatically start out with the sword and shield, or you start out with the sword. For sure, you don't even have to go through Hero's Cave, and Hero's Cave is different then. There's a whole nother thing to it.
Gotcha.
And then throughout the game, people will give you passwords to upgrade your equipment to better versions.
Gotcha. Okay.
So there's like, it's not like you just are like, oh, it's the same game. Like you end up getting things that are better.
Sure. And I mean, it's not the same game anyway. So.
Exactly. And this is partially because the final end game content is there because there's supposed to be a third game. So this was these games were originally The Legend of Zelda, the Seed of Courage, and Legend of Zelda, the Seed of Wisdom, and then Seed of Power, and then the Seed of Wisdom, and the third one was going to be the Seed of Courage, which would be a third game, seeing a third linked playthrough, and a whole bunch of other stuff that I'm not going to say why yet, because we haven't got there in the games themselves, but part of the problem was they couldn't find a way to get the passwords to work for both versions without it being like, well, did you also play the second game? And then like, will we have enough content for you to really want to play a linked playthrough?
Yeah.
And that kind of bums me out because that would have been awesome to get a third game in the series.
Definitely. But I mean, that is a lot of commitment, I feel, for one series, I guess. Already with 2 cartridges, it's just like, okay, well, if I want to complete, and is it true that you have to basically complete both games to get the entire full story, like the final ending?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that would be a lot to a commitment.
But it would have been so cool.
It might have been cool, yeah.
And fun fact is Capcom would adopt this 2-cartridge system for the Mega Man Battle Network series. Is almost every single entry in that series, and maybe the Star Force as well, um, were released on 2 different versions that I believe play completely different from each other.
So Capcom, this is like their thing.
They adopted it from this. This is where it started, and then in the future they did it a few times.
Nice. So that's a little fun fact about the Oracle games as well. Okay. So now that we've covered that, pretty much introducing these games, let's move on to a plot premise. Just a basic explanation of what's going on in the beginning of these games, up into the mention of the first dungeon. And like I said, Oracle of Seasons, it was the first one chronologically to happen, apparently. So I'll let you begin with a short plot premise of Oracle of Seasons, or long, however long you'd like it to be. But please, just walk us through exactly what happens from the moment you start the game until about the mention of the first dungeon.
So just confirm with me for a second.
Sure.
The cinematic that plays at the beginning of Ages is Link on a horse, and he's up on a mountain, and then, is it Hyrule Castle?
It looks like a castle.
Okay, so it might be Hyrule Castle, and I think it is, but I could be wrong. Link's all riding up on this horse.
Right.
Where do you get a horse?
In Ocarina of Time, obviously, because that's already happened.
But it's the wrong
I
Link.
know.
So he's riding up on this horse because the Triforce is calling out to him.
Well, where did he get a ship in Link's Awakening, by the way? So
true.
Sorry, I'll let you continue.
It's fine. So he's being called to by the Triforce that he originally placed in the castle, I believe, at the end of Link's Link to the Past. And he gets there, and they're calling to him, and he goes up and touches one of them, and they basically just cast him into a different kingdom. They're like, this kingdom needs your help. Go. And it's so funny, because at the beginning of the game, it's like, please accept our quest. And it's like, I have no choice. You've abandoned me here with none of my gear. Thank you, Triforce. You're great. And so he lands in the kingdom of Holodrum, and he falls, and...
Yeah, he does the ass fall, where he's falling ass first.
Yeah, and he lands, and he passes out. And then this mysterious girl with red hair shows up and is like, oh, there's this person who's passed out, and then it fades out. And then
sounds a lot like Link's Awakening already.
And then he comes to, and he's sitting next to like a wagon, and he hears music coming from the screen directly to the right. So he heads over, and there's a bunch of people playing instruments, and there's the red-haired girl is standing on a tree stump and dancing, and there's Impa is just sitting there. Anyone who knows Zelda games will recognize that Impa is like in every game, pretty much.
Yeah, she's around a lot.
I don't think she's in Link's Awakening or Link to the Past.
No, she wasn't.
So this is the first time she showed up in a Zelda game, Game Boy,
yeah.
I believe.
And
right. You talk to her, and she's like, oh, you're, like, I'm Impa, whatever, blah, 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 blah. You're from Hyrule, because you have the triangle on your arm. And then you go up and talk to the red-haired girl who helped you, and she's like, come dance with me. And you're like, yeah. So a dance party ensues, and everybody's jamming out. And then some lightning strikes, and the sky goes dark, and a mysterious voice calls out and says that he has found the Oracle of Seasons, and that she tried to hide, but her attempts were in vain. And it turns out to be Onyx, spelled like the Pokemon.
Like the fucking Pokemon.
And he's like, I'm gonna capture you, and I'm going to sink the Temple of Seasons and send the world into chaos of ever-changing seasons. So no one, I want a chaotic world to rule over.
Of course you do.
And lightning strikes, and a tornado shows up and just throws people in different directions. And then Link tries to fight the tornado, and obviously doesn't go well.
Doesn't work out.
And then it cuts to Din being chained up against a rock and sealed basically in this tower and unable to use her ability of the seasons. And Onyx shows up and walks in and taunts her, and he is this beefy, golden armor plaid man guy who is very, very menacing. And Link wakes up next to Impa, and she's like, you need to go talk to the Mako tree. He will point you in the right direction of what you can do, because this is awful. And you go up to the gate, and it's like, show a symbol of courage, and you'll be able to enter. And so after stumbling around the map and trying to figure out which direction to go, you eventually find the hero's cave. And you go through, it's a little bit of like getting you used to what dungeons are going to be like. Sometimes you're going to need to push blocks aside. Other times you need to avoid danger. And then you find a sword at the very end of it after traversing through this cave. You go, show that you have a sword, and the gate opens up, and the tree is asleep, and you have to pop his like snooze bubble to wake him up. And he basically is like, oh, I was asleep, and this happened on my watch, and it's my duty to keep the Oracle of Seasons safe. So go on this long quest because I wasn't paying attention.
You suck.
And then points you in the right direction for the first dungeon.
There you go. Okay. So there you go. So some parallels, obviously, in Ages as well, but not at all the same.
Mm-hmm.
So Oracle of Ages also starts out with the same kind of beginning. Link coming up to the Triforce and touching it. Apparently it was calling out to him to go to this land. And he is teleported also to a different land, which is Labrina. He is welcomed by Impa again. Impa is blue, which I found to be interesting. And she also realizes, oh, you have a Triforce on your hand. I need your help to move this rock that is blocking the way to Nehru. So you help her move this block. You go into this wood and you find Nehru, who is this singer, and she is singing to a bunch of animals, a crowd of animals, and the animals don't want to move initially because they are so enticed by her song, but then a friendly bear moves along so that you can listen to Nehru's song as well. And this is when Impa proceeds to freak out and convulse, and then a spirit basically exits her body, and the spirit reveals itself to be Varen, who is a sorceress of shadows. Right. And again, like Onyx, apparently, Varen also wants a world full of endless sorrow, because who wouldn't? And she thanks Link for opening the path to Nehru for her, and says that Nehru is the Oracle of Ages. Go figure. She then possesses her body. Varen possesses Nehru's body, and says that since she's the Oracle of Ages, she has the ability to travel through time. So using her body now in possession of Varen, she can travel through time and cause mayhem and create this world full of sorrow. So we then see a cutscene of people disappearing, people turning into stone, not really exactly sure what's happening. Yeah, right? But apparently she went back in time and messed with these people somehow, right? Must have made them disappear. We don't know. So Impa tells Link that he has to go to the Maku tree again. Maku tree is in this as well. And he goes to this Maku tree. It's funny because like I expected the Deku tree, like old man Deku tree,
which is what the one in Seasons is more like. He's like an old like I'm asleep, man.
Yeah, he's like, oh, you must go inside.
Basically.
Kill the evil. Yes, I was totally expecting that. And the Maku tree in Oracle of Ages is just like this kawaii lady tree who's like, who's like super like, oh, Link, oh my gosh. And she tells Link that he needs to find the essence of time, the essences of time to defeat Varen. So she says, that Link will find the first essence in this graveyard to the east, and that is the first dungeon that we're going to approach. So that was Oracle of Ages, the beginning plot. But first impressions so far, playing these games, Jack, do you have anything to say about first impressions?
I will try and remember what my first impression was.
Yeah, right. When you're 4 years old or whatever.
I mean, I'm excited. Seasons already. I'm excited for another adventure with Zelda, especially a handheld Zelda where I really like the item management. Like, I love that menu. I lived in that menu for so long in my life.
I actually liked the item management in Link's Awakening better. Surprisingly.
That's fair. I'm sad that I know for sure bomb arrows are not making a return from Link's Awakening. The best invention ever. Just equipped a bomb and a bow and arrow and hit both buttons and you get bomb arrows.
See, and I didn't even know that. And
it's not, nobody tells you.
What?
It's like something that you just have to like test out.
See,
I mean, there might be like a villager who tells you.
Yeah.
I'm excited to go on an adventure.
Nice. Yeah.
Very excited.
As this is my first playthrough, I did have some immediate first impressions. I thought the plot was set up really nicely. Like just in the beginning, learning who these characters are, and Nehru being like a talented singer and stuff, and she's obviously like very sympathetic, and the animals like her, and like then she gets possessed by this witch chick, and you're like, oh my god, I hate you and I really like you. So it's like I already care about the characters, which is cool. And I also enjoyed the artwork that they did. Like you were saying, the beginning cutscene, where Link is like riding up on the horse and everything, and they also have a little bit of that in the game, which Link's Awakening I don't remember it having very much of, but I like that they set that up. Is that like even when you walk in and you see Nehru singing, then it shows just like a little artwork, just like a little side-scrolling artwork of her like singing to the animals, and I thought that was nice. It's just like with the graphics being what they are on Game Boy Color, it's like how much can you really give? And so
Right.
I thought those were nice little touches that kind of added like, oh, and this is what it will actually look like. You know?
The Din cutscene is really nice, because she basically is like, Link, dance with me. And you're like, she's like, no, dance with me. And then, like, Link kind of looks really awkward, and she's just, like, going into her whole... She kind of looks like a genie.
Cool.
That's her whole, like, aesthetic, is she looks very much like a genie.
Nice.
Like, I would say she looks very similar to... There's another game called Shantae, she's a half genie, and, like, her whole aesthetic with, like, the long ponytail and, you know, the bracelets and the... It's just, it matches it really well, so it's just, she's got a great aesthetic. I think, another thing we haven't talked about is they are based on the goddesses of Hyrule.
And that's why I was wondering why Furore, or whatever, wasn't there.
She was going to be the third game.
Exactly, so that's what I was figuring. But I was thinking, like, are these goddesses, or are they not?
She still has a part to play in these games.
Okay.
It is through the linked game system. She is like the password lady.
Gotcha.
It's kind of funny.
So that's what your function is. You're the password lady. All right. So that is everything for the introduction episode of the Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons playthrough. In the next episode, we will be talking about the first 2 dungeons in both games. So 4 dungeons total, since they're not the same. And that should do it. Thanks for listening. And that is all.
Done.